That is not a coincidence. It is an act of God. So welcome to the Daily Devo. I am Vince Miller. This week we're in chapter 23 of 1 Samuel. I've titled this chapter, Your Way or the Lord's Way. Have it whichever way you want. One is better than the other. And as I mentioned on Monday, don't forget, if you want to come down and serve and help the people, the victims of Hurricane Milton, we would love to host you right here in our home. Maybe I'll lead some morning devos for you too, cook a nice evening meal at my table with us. Weekend house, about 4 to 5 people at a time. So if you're someone who wants to lead a group down here, reach out to me in the comments below. I would love to have you in my home. Now, back to the Devo. Yesterday, David was betrayed in Ziph by his own people, his own tribe, and this now is going to turn into a thrilling chase, a game of cat and mouse between Saul and David. So let's read what happens in verses 24 down through 27. Now, David and his men, remember, there's 600 of these guys, were in the wilderness of Maon in the Arabah to the south of Jeshimon, and Saul and his men went to seek him. And David was told, so he went down to the rock and lived in the wilderness of Maon. And when Saul heard that, he pursued after David in the wilderness of Maon. Saul went on one side of the mountain, and David and his men on the other side of the mountain. And David was hurrying to get away from Saul as Saul and his men were closing in on David and his men to capture them. A messenger came to Saul saying, "Hurry, come, for the Philistines have made a raid against the land." So when the Ziphites sold out David and his location to Saul, David and his men retreated about 5 miles south, so further away from Gibeah where Saul was. And it's kind of becoming evident in the story that Saul's intelligence is nowhere near superior to David's intelligence. Because remember, David had some inside sources like Jonathan, and he had an ephod on his side. So he's hearing from God. But the wilderness of Maon was a very strategic move for David. It was a region of Israel with sharp, cavernous cliffs. And as a result, one party could be standing on one side of a cliff with a cavern between them and the other party on the other side, making it extremely challenging to reach each other. Yet they could still hear, see, and talk to each other. So there's a little taunting here going on and kind of a little game of cat and mouse that made this a really interesting moment. But you can see here that this really didn't stop Saul, who was desperate to capture and kill David. Saul made every effort while he had the chance to try to capture him. But right when Saul thinks he has him, another enemy attacks, the Philistines. So, of course, they take advantage of the opportunity to raid Israel while their two prominent leaders and warriors are occupied like 30 miles south of Gibeah. Genius, of course, by the enemy. And I have always found it a little interesting how God can use anything and anyone to save his people. Anything and anyone. I mean, sometimes God saves by cunning strategy. I get it. Sometimes by divine intervention. And sometimes by using an enemy. In this instance, God uses an enemy to save a man of God from a man who's against God. And some might consider David's escape in the wilderness of Maon a mere coincidence. But it's not. God's providence is evident in this moment. And for those with a redeemed mind, like you and me, I hope, and a biblical worldview, we see this situation with faith, knowing that God provided salvation once again for David. So, stop seeing situations in your life as mere chance or coincidence. Believers believe. That is why we're called believers. Believers believe. That's why we're called believers. We believe in a living, risen, eternal God who guides and saves, even in unusual ways. When you stop seeing situations in your life as mere coincidences and chances, you will see God's deliverance more clearly. And as a result, your faith will grow in God and you will learn to trust him more. At the same time, Once you start doing this and believing it, other people will think you're crazy because you see with a redeemed mind events that are never coincidences, but acts of God. I love you guys. I pray this has blessed you. If it has, share it with someone else, and I'll see you right back here again. Wow.